All right, everybody. Once again, our god awful intro music. This is Unhappy Wednesday, everyone. Coming to you live once again from my humble abode here in Fairfield Township, Ohio. This is the Unhappy Gilmore Show, powered by Green Legion Radio and part of the Green Legion Radio family. We thank you for joining us tonight from wherever you may be and whatever service you're using to tune in. So pull up a chair, turn up the volume, use the company dime if you're stuck at work. And let's try to have a little fun as we put an end to day 3 of this week's hostage situation and look forward to tomorrow being Friday Eve. Got Lou Mancini over here already saying he was having a tough day. It was truly an unhappy Wednesday at work today. Got my ass kicked by a shower rematch tomorrow. That does sound unpleasant, brother. Sorry. Hopefully we can entertain you here for an hour-ish and make your evening at least a little bit more enjoyable. Just a couple things. If you're tuning in on Facebook or Twitter, please do not forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe to the Green Legion. Excuse me. If those services are where you're comfortable, totally understand. But you need to also understand that the YouTube channel is the best way to view, listen, and comment on any Green Legion radio show. So please do us a solid, even if you're on Facebook or Twitter, watching, listening, go ahead over to YouTube, search the Green Legion, hit that subscribe button, click that little bell next to it so you get notifications every time we go live. If you can't catch our shows live, that's okay too. You can always watch or listen later on any of these services, but also on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. You guys have all seen the Green Legion social media all over the place where the early bird RSVPs are being accepted now for the 2023 road trip season. Michelle and I here, we put in our deposit for Los Angeles. Again, still trying to work out the details for Kansas City with a couple of folks out here from my Midwest Eagles Nest group. Hopefully I'm able to get at least a few more people to go. But as of right now, our deposit is definitely in for Los Angeles. And then we just play the waiting game, right? To see when the schedule actually comes out. I think we're looking at, early May, right after the draft. Looking to see if the dates actually work. Being a family 5, having 3 kids, you're talking about, Halloween, it's probably a no-go. Thanksgiving's definitely out. Christmas is definitely out. New Year's is probably out. So we hope that Los Angeles game falls in a window where we can actually go. And of course, the price has to come back right too. So we'll see. I think I've got friends of ours here that are going to try to pair up with us. So that'll knock down that cost per head in the rooms. But, you've heard me talk about it 1,000 times on these shows here, whether it's been on this show, whether it's been on Right on Cue, whether it's been in person, or whether you've seen just my posts on social media. There is no better way to do a road trip for the Eagles than the Green Legion. They are the best in the business, and even if it's a home tailgate, I mean, you get down to Xfinity down there. It's just an awesome experience all the time. Russ Taylor in the room says West Side. All right, my friend, how you doing? So, a little bit more business here. Midwest Eagles Nest this past weekend. We had our night out for some NCAA tournament fun and also to celebrate Michelle's birthday. We had a blast. So once again, the few of you that were able to come out and hang out with us, very much appreciate it. Had a great time. And now we look forward to our baseball game. Is it 3 weeks away? April 15th, which just so happens to be the night before my birthday. So get your drinking shoes on for that one as well. But, if anybody else is in a bracket pool, we did one here with the Midwest Eagles Nest. Our pool looks exactly like everyone else's does that I would imagine. It's pretty much a disaster, but going into this tournament, I don't think there was really a clear-cut, surefire, this is the team that's going to win it all. I picked Alabama versus Houston with Alabama winning. Those two teams are still there, but I did have Duke in the Final Four. They came into the tournament on a 9-game winning streak. Second round, they're against Tennessee. Tennessee normally does not show up for those games. And, unfortunately for my bracket, Tennessee showed up that night, and Duke really did not. I'm never upset to see Duke get knocked out. I mean, even when they were riding that 9-game winning streak coming in, and you just kind of looked at it once Coach K retired, I was like, are we done with these guys? Can they stink for a little while? Nope, still Coach K's team there. So those are all kids recruited by him. So you expect them to be good for at least another year or so, and then you're going to find out what John Shire is all about. But yeah, so I technically still have a shot to win it all. Of course, I am a UConn fan. There's the hat right up there. And they might look better than everyone in the tournament, with the exception of maybe Alabama. Between Adama Sanogo and the second half of each game that they've been able to put together with the high-low game, with Hawkins getting going after halftime and Sanogo just absolutely dominant down low. We're going to find out against Arkansas, though. This is an Arkansas team that UConn will take on tomorrow night. I think it's at 7:10 or whatever. It's an Arkansas team that took out defending champ Kansas. So we're going to find out there. Hop over here for a minute. Lou Mancini says he's loving the madness. Princeton is awesome. Look, I love the tournament for what it does with the upsets and the Cinderellas and all that. I mean, it's always great stories. It's always a lot of fun. But when you talk about picking games and, you like to go upset early and then chalk a little bit later, right? So when it gets to, Sweet 16, you're okay with some of the Cinderella stuff. When it gets to the Elite Eight and the Final Four, while the stories are fun, sometimes those games don't turn out to be all that competitive. A team like Princeton can just run into a brick wall against a real national powerhouse and get completely decimated. It's a fun story. Don't get me wrong. I wish it was Yale, not Princeton, but hey, here we are. Again, we are 3.5 weeks from the Phillies at Reds game. For all of you Midwest Eagles Nest who are going, I thank you once again for paying for your tickets on time. Kevin Rice, if you're listening now or trying to listen later, I need you to download the MLB Ballpark app, my friend. I got to send you your tickets. I do not want to hold on to them. We can still all go in together or whatever, but these are your tickets. You've paid for them. I want to be able to send them to you, and it's all digital now. So I need you to download that app. Finally, for our group here, we are starting to look at ideas for an event in May. So I've got a poll post up there for some different ideas that, we've talked about, that others have mentioned. And I'll keep putting the poll question back up with with what everyone's voted for to that point. For some reason, it keeps it only allows the thing to stay up for like 2 days. I've been looking around for a way to extend it, but I couldn't find one. So anyways, that's what's going on as far as Green Legion, as far as our group here. Guys, as you know, guys and girls, we got a pretty small listening group right now, which is sometimes it's okay. We usually open up after going through the business, the intro and the business portion and all that. We usually open up with, what I've been calling the boner of the week, right? Well, and we'll get to that and have some fun with it. But when a sports legend dies, when a sports legend passes away, we need to pay our respects. And I know all of you are Philadelphia fans, and I know you don't like the Knicks, and that's okay. But yesterday we said goodbye to Willis Reed, who passed away from heart failure at the age of 80. Keaton, I see you in the room, bud. How you doing? So, the guys that played on the team, they just called him captain, right? That was his nickname for all of them. Selected by the Knicks with the first pick in the second round of the 1964 draft. Instantly a force on both ends of the floor. Now, I obviously was not old enough to witness this with my own eyes. But we do, I have been able to watch film. I mean, everybody's seen that film of him, coming onto the floor in Game 7 of the 70 finals when he had the something torn in his thigh and still getting out onto the floor, just like a warrior. So he's an immediate force at both ends of the floor. 19 and a half points, 14.7 rebounds per game en route to winning the Rookie of the Year. Keep in mind, he was 6'9", Willis Reed, so not a prototypical center. And he was banging around against Wilt Chamberlain, against Bill Russell, against and later on against Kareem, at 6'9", and was still able to put up these very respectable rebounding numbers as well as block shots. He just played with an amazing amount of ferocious, tenacity. It was just, there's that game, the Willis Reed game, right, where he goes out and he gets punched. I forget what the guy's name is on the Lakers, but Willis just goes berserk, ends up breaking two guys' jaws in the process. I mean, this is the type of player. In the 69-70 season, he leads the Knicks to a franchise record 60 wins, caps it with the title, becomes the first player in NBA history to be named All-Star Game MVP, Season MVP, and Finals MVP in the same year. He was also an All-NBA first team, All-NBA defensive first team. And this is the one where in Game 7 of the Finals, despite the torn thigh muscle that had kept him out of Game 6 entirely, right? He didn't play Game 6. He manages to get onto the floor and start Game 7 for the Knicks and scores their first two field goals. They end up being his only two field goals of the night. After the game, Howard Cosell told Willis Reed on national television, and I quote, "You exemplify the very best that the human spirit can offer." So you just, the impact that this man, I'm sorry, I keep rubbing the back of my neck. It's just really bothering me today. So, by the time the second championship season comes around in 72 and 73, the injuries had just kind of piled up on him. He wasn't the dominant force that he had been. He averages just 11 points in 69 games. In the playoffs, the Knicks beat the Bullets, upset the Celtics, and then had to square off against the Lakers, who had defeated them in the finals the previous year. It ends up being a gentleman's sweep. The Knicks drop the first game, win the next 4. In Game 7, Willis Reed drops 18 points, grabs 12 rebounds, and dishes out 7 assists to be named Finals MVP once again. Retiring after the 73-74 season with a career unfortunately cut short by injuries, his knees, his thighs, his leg, just everything. Big guys, He bounced around as a coach for a while with the Knicks, then to Creighton University, St. John's, the Atlanta Hawks, the Kings, and the Nets before becoming a GM with the Nets and later president of basketball operations with the Hornets before retiring for good in 2007. And everything you read about this man, and I get it. He had that maniac game where he came out and just tried to beat the shit out of everyone on the Lakers roster and actually succeeded with 2 of them. Everything you read about him and everything people say about him is that he was just a really genuinely nice man, which is hard to imagine when you see him running around throwing haymakers at people. But heat of the moment, all that competitive, and the way he played the game, you can kind of understand. For his career, 1965 Rookie of the Year and All Rookie Team. 1970 All Defensive First Team. 4-time All NBA Second Team. 1970 All NBA First Team. 1970 All-Star Game MVP. 7-time NBA All-Star from 1965 through 1971. 1970 NBA MVP. 2-time Finals MVP in 1970 and 1973. Also the NBA champion both of those years. His number 19 retired by the Knicks. NBA All-Anniversary Team, the 50th and 75th year anniversary teams. Inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame in 1982. The College Basketball Hall of Fame in 2006. He was also a gold medal winner representing America in 1963 at the Pan Am Games. You know, again, before my time. So the only thing I've ever seen is film and listening to people who were around back then. Keenan over here says Keenan, I'm old enough to remember that game. I got a couple of you listing off who Willis went after in that game where he tried to clobber the entire Lakers roster. But I mean, when you look at it all, when you hear how people speak of him, when you hear how the respect that his former teammates still had of him, decades later, calling him captain, how much he was a force and a leader on the floor. This is a guy who had only 6'9". He'd walk onto the floor and Wilt Chamberlain was scared of him. That's kind of the rumor that Wilt was kind of a little bit more softer of an athlete and relied very heavily on just his size, on just his length and athleticism. Whereas Reed didn't have that. He was 6'9", playing against guys that were 7'1", 7'2". So he would just come at you, nasty, mean, and relentless. And it would, apparently Chamberlain would get a little rattled by it. So when you look at it all, I guess the best way to sum it up is just, it's definitely a life well lived, right? I mean, quiet man later in his life. You didn't hear much from him. You'd see him at games. He was always very celebrated. But it's just, rest easy, Cap. The NBA world and the sports world lost a legend yesterday at the full age of 80. I thought it very appropriate to open with that rather than the boner of the week, right? I mean, we're going to have some fun with the boner of the week anyways. But before we get into that, and I keep forgetting to do this, and you guys never remember to remind me, when I'm home, this link needs to go up every time I'm home, right? So that whoever wants to, if anybody's out there, Fito or whoever's listening, if you guys wanted to get it out, there's my mother just joined the room. There's my mother. She says she remembers Willis Reed was an awesome player. My mother, not the biggest basketball fan, but growing up where I grew up, where my mother grew up, I mean, the Knicks were, 40 minutes away, an hour away. So, obviously Willis Reed, a very big deal back there, as well as all of your Boston teams too, which I'm sure drives my mother and everyone else like me crazy. Anyways, Keenan Harmon. When Reed walked onto the court for Game 7, the entire Lakers team had the look of defeat on every face. And perfect. Thank you, Keenan. From somebody who was actually able to watch the game. I'm glad you're able to chime in with that and give us some insight. Because again, it's just before my time. Captain Demp's in the room. We haven't gotten to the birds portion of this, so I haven't scared you away yet. Cap's been a little timid talking about birds since the Super Bowl. Not that I blame him. I don't blame anybody for it. But let's transition over to the boner of the week now that we have covered Willis Reed. And again, rest easy, Cap. 80 years young, full life. The entire sports world, all of our, even in small parts like all of us here, we are, all our hearts and thoughts and stuff out to your family. So while we opened with Willis Reed, and rightfully so, we'll transition over to this week's version of the boner of the week. Now, I considered a couple of different things here. I will tell all of you that I did consider CJ Gardner-Johnson and his agent. But at the end of the day, without CJ, we probably don't have as good of a year as we did last year. And, ultimately he did get paid. So I don't want to pick on the guy too much. But thankfully, the NCAA tournament has provided us with an even better candidate, a more deserving candidate, if you ask me anyways. So Lou Mancini says George Karl, no. Matt Painter the head coach at Purdue University. Yet another epic failure. So all we hear about is how great Matt Painter is. And especially, I'm out here in Big Ten country, right? And Purdue's obviously a Big Ten school. So I have to hear it all I hear it all the time. Whether it's I hear it from people who support Purdue, or I hear it from all the Buckeye fans who live around here who can't stand Purdue. I still have to hear about how Matt Painter this, Matt Painter that. 18 seasons as the head coach at Purdue. He's won the Big Ten regular season championship 4 times. Okay. Once every 4 to 5 years is not bad in that conference. It's usually a very competitive conference. Won it in 2010, 2017, 2019, and 2023 this year. He won the Big Ten tournament twice, 18 years, 2009, and again this year, 2023. He's been a 4-time Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2008, 2010, 2011, and 2019. NABC Coach of the Year in 2019, posting a total record of 413 and 198 as the Purdue head coach, right? That's a 676 win percentage. That is all of those things. Very impressive. However, he has made only 1 Elite Eight, 0 Final Fours, and in his last 3 NCAA tournament appearances, he was a number 4 seed that lost to a 13, a number 3 seed that ended up losing to a 15, and this year, why he's now dubbed the Boner of the Week, a number 1 seed who lost to a 16. This is only the second time this has happened. We all remember the first one in 2019 or 18 with Virginia, losing that one, and then Virginia comes back and wins the whole thing the next year. But when you look at how well Purdue played, right? So they were the Big Ten regular season champ, the Big Ten tournament champ. They come in with Matt Painter as their coach. They come in with Zach Edey, who is the odds-on favorite to be the National Player of the Year at 7'4". You come into this NCAA tournament when it is literally wide open, right? Anywhere from like 5 seeds up, you could have made a case before the tournament started that all of them had a shot. And you come out and you lay an absolute egg and get knocked off by a 16 seed with that giant kid in the middle who, in my opinion, is runner-up Boner of the Week because he is – you want to talk about – so the Eagles just got rid of Big Puddin', right? This kid's another one. For as big as he is, plays way too soft. I don't know if anybody watched Purdue basketball, the Big Ten tournament, or even that first-round game when they got upended by Fairleigh Dickinson. That kid is soft. He catches the ball down low, and people just start smacking at his hands, and he doesn't have the strength to just hold on to it. The gentleman we spoke about to open the show, Willis Reed, when you got that ball down to him, you think you were ripping that thing out of his hands? No, not happening. UConn, our big man, 6'9", Adama Sanogo. You dump that ball down to him. You think you're just easily slapping it out of his hands unless he does something goofy with it and tries to bring it down? No. Zach Edey's 7'4", and they're dumping into him down. He sticks his arms up like this. Everyone else is like maybe up to his shoulder. I mean, he's just got to turn around and put it up. But instead he grabs it and he starts this, and they just came up and started smacking at it, and he loses the ball. It had to happen. For me, it felt like it happened on almost every single one of their possessions over the last 5 minutes of that basketball game. They were terrible. Absolutely terrible. And shame on Matt Painter for not grabbing some jerseys. Be like, yo, dude, somebody make a shot here. Like, get it together. And grabbing that big kid. Hey, bub, you are way bigger than everyone on this floor. Just assert your will. Stop grabbing the pass up here and bringing the ball down. Keep your arms up. Nope. Didn't happen. So here we are. Boner of the week. This game, that loss is being touted when you factor everything in. Big Ten regular season champ, Big Ten tournament champ, National Player of the Year likely in Zach Edey, Matt Painter as this highly touted head coach, and you lose to another number 16. This game, that loss is already being touted as significantly worse than the Virginia loss. It is being touted as the worst defeat in the history of the NCAA tournament. So for all those reasons, and of course the loss, Matt Painter with runner-up Zach Edey, you are the unhappy Gilmore boner of the week. Hell, that dude, at this point, they're probably the boner of the year at this point. Let's jump over and see what you guys are saying. Captain Demps calls him a loser. Absolutely. He gets better record in seeding last 4 times against worse opponent and still lost. Damn straight. What else do we have here? You guys are still Keenan. Exactly why Purdue was not in my Final Four. I was surprised by how many people had Purdue going to their Final Four. I did not. I got very fortunate those first couple days, or when the upsets were going on, the big upsets, with Purdue, with Arizona, and with Virginia again. I only had those 3 teams going to the Sweet 16. But in my bracket pool, I mean, by the end of Friday, like there were people that were completely out of it. Arizona, unfortunately, for our good friend Lou Dominguez, Arizona just they struggle, man. They struggle to consistently win tournament games. And Purdue, same thing. Virginia, I know they bounced back well the year after that big choke and they won the whole thing. But like, how often is that really supposed to happen? Do we really think that Virginia was that good? Now, I didn't expect them to lose first round, but I didn't have them going past Sweet 16, and I really shame on anyone that had Virginia going past the Sweet 16. At least Arizona at some points during the season showed you some things that would make you think they should be that team. Purdue with Zach Edey, had they gotten on a roll, you could make an argument that, I'm being a little too harsh in my pre-tournament judgment that I would not have had Purdue going very far. But me and my friend Kevin sat right here in my house. We watched that Big Ten championship. And Edey looked soft to me. And when you get to that tournament, these kids, especially those high seeds, man, the lower seeds, this is like everything to them, right? For them, playing in that game is like going to a national championship for them. And they are out there just getting it, man. They're letting all hang out. And that's why a lot of times I think you see these teams like a Purdue, like an Arizona, like a Virginia, they get bit because they kind of just go out there and they're trying to go through their normal motions. And this other team is just like, yo, we're going to try to run you right out of our building, right out of this building. I say our building. And it bit Purdue again. And now this guy, his last 3 appearances, we'll read them off again. A number 4 seed lost to a 13. A number 3 seed lost to a 15. And then the 1 seed losing to the 16 in what is being highly regarded as the worst loss in NCAA tournament history. Congrats, boners of the week. And to cap it, with all of that, I mean, I get what his regular season prowess has been and the success he's had in his conference tournament. But I think when you consider this loss, and you guys tell me if I'm crazy here, when you consider this loss, there is a strong case to be made that Matt Painter may very well be the most overrated coach in any sport right now. Sorry, guys. That's just the way I see it. What do we got over here? Russ Taylor says his bracket is on fire. Yep. Russ Taylor again. Give me the Miami Twins on the women's team. Nice. Let's see. Yeah, you guys are talking about women's basketball. We don't do that on the show. I'm saying, look, and it's not a sexist thing. It's really not. I don't watch it. Okay. I do not find it. I think those women are incredibly talented. I really do. And I'm not knocking them. I just don't find it to be an enjoyable product. I can't sit down and watch it. Look, I'll be honest with you. I have a hard time watching NBA basketball nowadays, but I can't. The WNBA is, look, would I go to a game? Yes, I would absolutely go to a game. And I would, utmost respect for all of them, but you're not going to find me tuning in on TV. There's a billion other things I can watch. Anyways, moving on from the boner of the week. Captain Demps, if you're still in the room and you don't want to hear birds, you may want to back out now. just your warning. So when I considered boner of the week, like I said to start it, I did also consider CJ Gardner-Johnson and his agent. Ultimately, I backed off of that because, again, I liked CJ. I was really hoping he was going to be back. When things looked like they were going sideways, I was pretty upset about it. You can ask my friend Mike out here. I'm always a big fan of the safety position, right? So, Dawkins and then Malcolm Jenkins, and then, CJ came in and played had a great year last year. So there's Captain. Thanks for the warning. You're welcome, buddy. Yeah. So CJ and his agent, we are going to talk that though. Just not as not being derogatory towards him. So on Monday the 13th, which was like the official tampering day, right? You're allowed to start talking to guys without actually signing them, right? So it's official deal. Happy tampering day. Apparently, we made an offer to CJ at 3 years, $24 million. Okay. He declined it and decided to test the market. Now, in his defense, okay, and this is something I had wrong at the start because I had read some bad information. So Kenny, our friend Kenny out here, if you're listening, so that 3-year, $24 million contract was $17 million in the third year. So what does that tell you, everybody? It tells you we were trying to offer CJ a 2-year, $7 million deal, which, at that point, you can't blame him for going to test the market, right? It makes perfect sense. You're thinking you're getting lowballed. And based on where the rest of these safeties ended up signing, which we'll get into in a few minutes, he wasn't entirely wrong. On Tuesday, the 14th, we, having had our offer turned down from CJ, look, it became pretty obvious when you go back and look at this, the timeline, that we just, they didn't really value CJ all that much. I think they looked at him as more of a hybrid, maybe not your prototypical safety. Maybe there were concerns about health, whatever the case may be. Look, in Howie, we trust until proven otherwise, just like in Nick, we trust until proven otherwise with freaking Sean Desai. So, Lou Mancini, you don't believe what, bud? I kind of lost you guys there. So you guys were talking about girls basketball, and I was letting the room do its thing. But again, when you go back and look at all this, it looks like we were just like, okay, we're going to offer you this. This is our best offer. And if you don't like it, thank you for your service and, go ahead and test the market. So Tuesday, we pivot and we go to Bradbury and Slay, with Bradbury getting signed to a 3-year deal. We were all happy about that, right? You had to bring back at least one of the corners. That's where I thought this was going to go. I thought we'd bring back one of the corners and CJ. With this upcoming draft being so deep at the corner position, I really felt like Slay was kind of expendable. Don't get me wrong, I like big play Slay. But if you watch him the back half of the year, there were some bumps and bruises starting to show. And at 32 years old, he is getting to the point where he's past his prime. So while it's cool, it's great to hang on to him, I was okay with losing him. Lou Mancini, $17 million. How he doesn't back. Well, apparently that's what happened here. Lou? They offered him 3 years, 24 mil, with 17 in the last year of the contract. So he turned it down. Yeah, and I get it. On Wednesday, the 15th, it looked like we were going to say goodbye to Slay, which again, I love what he's done with us the last couple of years, but I was okay with it at that point. We'd already gotten Bradbury locked up. I'm figuring we're still trying to work with CJ at this point. And the number 10 pick, we talked about it on this show the last couple of weeks. You go after a corner, Joey Porter Jr., Witherspoon out of Illinois, Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon, but deep corner draft. However, late that night, we ended up striking a deal with Slay. And then we also brought back Fletcher Cox on the 1-year deal. Now, that is the one that bothers me a little bit. We did talk on this show a week or two ago or whatever it was about the lack of depth at the defensive tackle position. So understanding bringing a defensive tackle in, $10 million for Fletcher Cox. I can tell you, I don't know where Quimby was at the time that got announced, but I'm sure everyone around him was no longer enjoying themselves because he was probably screaming and swearing at the television, at least for a few minutes. Look, the $10 million for Fletch is a reduced rate from what he was getting paid. So it is down, but you have to wonder, could you, hindsight's 2020, right? Could you have taken some of that 10 and gotten CJ up to where he really should have been? So anyways, on Thursday the 16th, now this is where I start having a problem with CJ. He takes to Twitter, right? He takes to social media and starts with disrespect is real, taking down photos, putting up other photos, teasing with Baltimore Ravens stuff, teasing with Bengals shit. He would just, he started acting like the 25-year-old kid that he is, right? And that, to me, it's always a little disappointing to see guys act like that. Now, granted, he turned down the offer. So really, he's out there flapping in the breeze of his own will, But so when you look at it in hindsight, the first 2 years of the contract he would have gotten with us would have been, an average annual value of, $3.5 million a season. Well, let's take a look at some of the other safeties that had signed, right, and have signed since. So, okay, look, I'm going to throw Jesse Bates out there, but I want you to disregard this because the Atlanta Falcons are just fucking stupid, okay? They're giving Jesse Bates an average annual value of $16.005 million a year. Look, Atlanta had to overspend for some defense, but Jesse Bates, the guy was okay in Cincinnati. It wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire. Outrageous. Now let's get back to some more reasonable numbers. Von Bell, $7.5 million. Donovan Wilson and Juan Thornhill, both $7 million. Jimmy Ward, $6.5 million. Julian Love, $6 million. I feel like CJ felt like he should have been in that range and then saw the huge contract that Bates got and was, well, maybe I should be above all these other guys, somewhere lower than Bates because of the ridiculousness of it, but somewhere above, where Von Bell was. Unfortunately, for CJ and really his agent too, they just completely misread the market for CJ Gardner-Johnson. If you look at his overall attributes, he is not a big guy from, by football standards, even for safety standards, right? Oh, hey, Chucky, how we doing, bud? Had a chance to hop on before I leave the office. Always great to see you, bud. Thanks for popping in. David Conant, Jesse Bates sucked the last 2 years compared to what he thinks he's worth. And, well, Dave, apparently what the Atlanta Falcons thought he was worth. Lou Mancini says he was apparently a borderline problem in the locker room, at least from what I read, and we're talking about CJ Gardner-Johnson here. Yeah, he's 25-year-old. He's young. He's a bit immature, and I can see it. So get back to the timeline here. On Saturday, the 18th, he's back on Twitter where he gives his agency his support. On Sunday, the 19th, we're back on Twitter again, where the deal with Detroit is announced, as well as the details from the offer with Philly. Again, slightly in his defense, 2 years, $7 million after the season he had, albeit with an injury. $3.5 million a year. That's pretty shitty. I don't blame him for testing the market. However, they misread the market in thinking that he was, should be one of those top paid safeties. That wasn't going to happen. So shame on his agent and shame on him for being immature. Overall, again, they misread the market and held out long enough to end up on another 1 year prove-it contract. Now he got his $8 million, okay, which is more than double the year value that the Birds offered him, but it's 1 year, and it's a prove-it contract. Now, what happens if he goes out and gets hurt again? Right? I get that the lacerated kidney was a little bit of a fluke. I totally understand it, but could you make the argument that maybe he has to load up so big to hit somebody that he put himself in that injury position, right? Whereas if he was a little bit bigger guy, a little bit more sound in his in how hard and how he hits, maybe that doesn't happen. Or was it just a fluke in a bad situation? Whatever the case may be, hey CJ, I think most of us wanted you back, but your antics at the end really kind of showed your true colors to us. We're not going to bash you. And I was happy to see that after all was said and done, he did come out and say no hard feelings, blah, 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 blah. Just, again, all the Twitter stuff and the mouth and everything, these are the acts of an impulsive 25-year-old dude. He's got to grow up some, for sure. But never say never, right? He's only 25. It's a 1-year contract. I mean, he's got a lot of football left to play ahead of him, hopefully, right? I think he's a very talented young man. And you don't ever want to, completely shut the door for anything. So hopefully his agent got in his ear and was like, maybe cool it a little bit with the. I mean, he's taking down pictures of Philly, putting pictures of Philly back up, putting pictures of Baltimore up, fucking pain in the ass. It's like, dude, get over it, man. You didn't get the contract you wanted from us. You didn't really get, you got $8 million, but again, 1 year. We'll see. And then, so the last kick in the ass with CJ was his comment that he feels this Detroit roster is slightly better than last year's Eagles Super Bowl roster. Look, dude, we all get you were butthurt, but let's not be ridiculous about it, all right? Again, the acts of a 25-year-old impulsive kid. Like, come on, dude. Now, he did come out after, no hard feelings, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah. So, hopefully, he learned his lesson. Hopefully, he has a decent season and is able to cash in somewhere. Likely will not be with us. He can go ahead over to the AFC. All right, let's hop back over here for just another minute. Chuck says he wanted his bag. They just misjudged it. Absolutely, man. They completely misread the entire market for him, and it cost him. Obviously, he's got his $8 million for this season, but it cost him, some security for multiple years. That's a he said, she said on the contract. Lou, I don't know. That's everything I've read kind of states that sort of thing. It was 3 years, 24 million, 17 at the end. Honestly, at this point, it doesn't matter, right? He's out the door. If we offered him 3 years, 24, and it was legit like $8 million per season, and he turned that down, then he's an asshole. Like, you weren't going to get paid. That was more than everyone else on the market except for Jesse Bates. And we've already talked about this. Jesse Bates, David Conant brought it up. Not good the last 2 years. And Atlanta had to overspend for some defensive help. I think they did it in the wrong spot. That's on them. 16 mil average annual value for Jesse Bates is absolutely outrageous. If we had offered CJ 3 years, 24 million, where the contract actually broke down to 8 million average, 8 million per season, and he turned that down, at CJ, we can't help you any further. See you later. But the fact that he turned it down immediately kind of makes me feel like there's some validity to that end load portion of it. Lou Mancini, you're right about that hybrid comment on his value. Yeah, and I think him and his agent just screwed it up. So, anyways, let's move on away from CJ, right? He's on his way to Detroit. Good luck to you. As long as you're not playing against us, take out all your frustrations on Dallas or whoever else. Now that CJ is gone and we've got our 2 starting corners locked down, as far as the Birds roster, and we've been kind of doing a position group a week here, we probably want to take a look at that safety spot on our own roster, right? So if you look at the current depth chart, just go to ESPN or whatever, and Philadelphia Eagles depth chart. This is likely what you see. At strong safety, you'll see Kayvon Wallace as the starter, with Tristan McCollum and Andre Shush, I don't even know how to pronounce his last name, as the second and third string. At the free safety position, you'll see Reed Blankenship as the starter, with Justin Evans and Marquise Blair as the second and third string. Folks, it's totally possible that this is how we roll into the 2023 season, right? And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's like the worst thing in the world. I mean, I think we saw some things from Reed Blankenship last year that gave you some hope that he made some plays. He's a little bit over aggressive, getting some flags, but the guy's trying to make plays, and he's young, and he was trying to supplant his spot there. So I'm not trying to say it's the worst thing, but I think we would definitely need to assume that those corners, Slay and Bradbury, and then Maddox at the slot corner, will have to play extremely well, right? Which, to be honest with you, with how much we just invested in Slay and Bradbury, we should expect them to play extremely well. I am concerned about Darius Slay. It's always better to let a guy go a year too early than a year too late, and his age is starting to make me nervous a little bit. But I guess we'll wait and see. Avonte Maddox may very well be the best slot corner in the game. If not, he's somewhere top 3, top 5 at that position. When you take the trio of them, I don't think there's a better trio in the league. And you got some depth there with Greedy Williams. The number calling from California, I have no idea who the hell that is. Anyways, Justin Evans, who we just signed, right? To give us some depth. So he's a 2017 second round pick out of Texas A&M, 6 foot, 199 pounds. Good start to his career, including his rookie season with 66 tackles, 3 picks, 6 passes defense in that rookie season. He then would miss all of 2019 after suffering a torn Achilles tendon. Spent 4 months on the PUP list in 2020 while rehabbing that injury, and then missed all of 2021 as well. Right? In 2022, he played 15 games, just 40% of the defensive snaps for the Saints. And he logged 29 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 2 passes defensed. Right now he's listed as the primary backup for Reed Blankenship. Blankenship, he goes out there trying to lay some lumber. So what else does that lead to sometimes? Leads to some injuries, leads to needing some time off, leads to, miss a game here and there, having to take a handful of plays off. This guy that we have no idea what we're going to get from is right now listed as our backup in that role. I think it's worth pointing out that, he's had to work incredibly hard to get back to the NFL level, right? And that's commendable. That kind of chip on your shoulder mentality. Again, like we keep going back to that chip on the shoulder thing, like a Jalen Hurts. But ultimately, we don't know what we're getting. So there's also talk that Avonte Maddox or Josiah Scott could transition to the safety position. Okay, so my opinion when Maddox is healthy, like I said before, we've got the best trio of corners in the league. All right. With Slay and Bradbury on the outside and Maddox in the slot. If Maddox or Scott are going to be, tinkered with as far as a possible safety option, I'd really rather see Scott get tried out there first. And Maddox is probably the better player. I mean, well, he's the better corner by a freaking mile. And he may end up being better suited, or, he may end up being better at the safety position than Scott. But remember what that slot corner position looked like when Maddox was out and had to miss time last year due to injury, and Josiah Scott had to take over in that role. The drop-off at the slot corner position from Avonte Maddox to Josiah Scott is extreme. It's drastic. And so if one of these two guys is going to have to move, I'd really rather it be Josiah Scott. He was not the answer at the slot corner position. And I'd really rather not get exposed there again, right? So that's where we sit as far as current safeties on the roster. Give you a little background on Justin Evans and, some other crap that rumors and stuff that you read and hear about as far as Maddox or Scott moving to safety. There's also the draft. Now, unfortunately, this draft is not very deep at the safety spot, which is why, like I said earlier, I thought we would hold on to Slay or Bradbury as well as CJ and then go draft a corner at that number 10 pick. Especially once that, last Wednesday, all that came down the pipe about Slay saying goodbye. And I'm like, okay, well, that's it. That number 10 pick is definitely going to be a corner now. And then they bring Slay back, and now CJ's gone. Safety position, not very deep. It's not that there's no talent there. I'm just going to give you, what do I got here? I'm going to give you 3 of them, okay? And then we're going to move on to our final topic, and we're going to call it a night. Where can we go in the draft as far as safety? The highest rated safety on the board is Brian Branch out of Alabama, 6'3", 193 pounds, okay? Top 5 safety prospect nationally out of Sandy Creek High School in Georgia. The same school that Pro Football Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson attended. Branch won the Georgia 5A Iron Man of the Year award as a senior for his play on both sides of the ball, though he stuck at safety in his true freshman year at Alabama, playing in 12 games with 3 starts, logging 27 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 7 passes defensed in their 2020 national championship season. He played all 15 games in 2021, starting 7 times and leading the Tide with 9 passes defensed, also recording 55 tackles, 5 for a loss. Keenan Harmon, no, I'm not going to talk about Greedy Williams. I actually haven't talked about the corner position yet. We glazed over it heading into the safety stuff. Corner position would probably be actually, I talked it 2 weeks ago, I think. Anyways, we're not talking Greedy Williams. He played all 15 games in 2021, started 7 times, blah, blah, blah. Branch broke out as a second-team AP All-American as a junior, starting all 13 games, logging 90 tackles, 14 for a loss, with 3 sacks, 2 interceptions, 7 passes defensed. He's the top safety on the board. And in order to get him, we'd have to take him at 10 if he's even still there. I really don't think the Birds are going to do that, but he's the best safety on the board. Right behind him, kind of, Antonio Johnson, 6'3", 195 out of Texas A&M. It's a big kid. Appeared in 7 games for the Aggies as a true freshman in 2020, 14 tackles, 1 pass defensed. Starting at nickelback for the team's Orange Bowl win over North Carolina. The former 4-star recruit from East St. Louis, Illinois, started all 12 games at that nickel spot in 2021, receiving the team's Defensive Playmaker Award with 79 tackles, 8.5 for loss, with 1 sack, 1 pick, and 5 passes defensed. He missed 3 games with an injury in 2022, but still was named first-team All-SEC after leading the team with 3 forced fumbles and 9 starts, posting 71 tackles, 5 for loss, and 1 pass defensed. There's number 2, right? Bigger kid. bigger CJ Gardner-Johnson. Look at it that way, right? So that played a bunch of nickel corner, and then transitioned over to safety. He's a little bit bigger, probably fits the safety mold a little bit better than CJ does. Finally, the last one we're going to look at, J.L. Skinner. This guy is enormous. 6'4", 220-pound safety out of Boise State. The former star performer at Point Loma High School in San Diego started once in his true freshman season for the Broncos, but did play in all 14 games, logging 14 tackles and 3 passes broken up. He started 6 times in 2020 with 37 tackles, 1.5 for loss, and 1 interception, and then made his name as a second-team All-Mountain West Conference defender in 2021, leading his squad with 92 tackles, 7 for a loss. He also intercepted 2 passes, broke up 5 others, forced 2 fumbles, and recovered 3 in 12 starts. Skinner was a first-team All-Conference selection in 2022, leading the Broncos with 4 picks while also posting 75 tackles, 4 pass breakups in 12 starts. He did suffer a torn pectoral while working out in February, which prevented him from working out at the NFL Scouting Combine. So that's just 3 safeties that are in the draft, all incredibly talented kids. Obviously, Brian Branch is the top end. Then you had this kid, Antonio Johnson, who talented, but seems to be more of a hybrid. And then you have this monster at 6'4", 220 in J.L. Skinner. The Birds are going to go safety in the draft. I would expect it middle rounds. Maybe none of these kids are available, but I figured it was worth taking a look at in case we wanted to look at maybe that number 30 pick not being traded down, or, second or third round. David Connett in the room says he is here for the baseball. Well, you're not a Phillies fan, and the baseball is going to be brief, my brother. So I will tell you right now, the baseball that I'm going to talk very briefly here to close out the show is 100% in, for the majority of our audience enjoyment. So it's time for a little bit of baseball. And expect baseball to start coming back to the forefront here, guys. I try to keep breaking down position groups for you with the Eagles every week as we lead into the draft. It's only a month away. Once the draft is over, it's going to be you're going to see a lot of baseball. We'll keep talking football too. We'll always talk Birds football here, but baseball is going to start creeping its way back up. So for tonight, when the World Baseball Classic, if anybody watched it, it was an incredibly fun thing to watch. Despite the loss in the championship by the U.S. last night. Congrats to Japan, whatever, moving on. Commissioner Manfred, who I can't stand, but he has already announced that the WBC will be back in 2026. So that's definitely something to look forward to. I thought it was awesome. When we advertised tonight's show, and, just the kind of little tease of things we were going to talk about, whether, the loss of an NBA legend, the boner of the week, CJ Gardner-Johnson. When we teased the baseball portion of it, I told you it was because all of you Philly fans should literally be over the moon excited for this upcoming season. And if you don't know why by this point, especially after the World Baseball Classic, then shame on all of you. All of you. Because I'm about to talk about a young man who I have wanted on my Yankees since almost the first time I saw him when he was playing for the Nationals. So going into the World Baseball Classic and all during it, we heard commercials and all kinds of advertisements and stuff that were all calling Mike Trout what? Captain America. Okay? I'm sure Quimby was throwing shit at his television. I am not the biggest Mike Trout fan. Taking nothing away from his talent. I'm here to tell you that not only was I not surprised when he whiffed against Ohtani, and Ohtani just owned him. in that at bat. But as far as the whole Captain America thing, yeah, that title 100% belonged to Trey fucking Turner during this World Baseball Classic. To me, there was no doubt about it. Yeah, that's the man who, he'll turn 30 this summer, so he's right in the middle of his prime, right? You guys, Phillies, you locked him up 11 years, $300 million. He's got a career 302 batting average, career 842 OPS, which, like we talked about last year, some of you folks that aren't all that hip to the baseball, on base plus slugging. It's a good barometer on, the overall impact, right? Getting on base and your slugging percentage added together. Bam. Okay. 302 on 842 OPS, and just came off his first 100 RBI season while swiping another 27 bags. By the way, that's 230 stolen bases for his career. Okay. In the World Baseball Classic, he hit 391 with a 440 on base percentage, a 1,043 slugging percentage for an OPS of 1,483. 5 homers, 11 RBIs, and 6 runs scored in just 6 games. I mean, dude. Now this kid, he's headed to Philly, right? He's Captain America. And he homered again in the championship game last night. And had a base hit late in the game off of Yu Darvish. That, when you look at JT Realmuto, and God, for the life of me, I can't remember who the next hitter was after him. So Schwarber hits the bomb, right, to make it a 1-run game. And then Turner flips a single. He's standing on first base. This kid is a deadly base runner, incredibly fast, high success rate stealing bases. And the next 2 hitters swing at the first pitch. So, Dave, I see you and a couple others over there talking about analytics, and this is the problem. That situation with 1 out and Trey Turner at first base, guys, you have got to take pitches and give this kid a chance to swipe a bag or 2. Anyways, it didn't happen. Then, of course, Captain Butthole out there in Anaheim, Mike Trout strikes out to end the game. But anyways, back to Trey Turner. This young man is now going to head to Philly. He's going to bat in that Phillies lineup where I believe he should bat leadoff. But he could literally bat anywhere 1 through 4 in that order and be incredibly productive. In my opinion, he is right there near the top. If he's not considered an MVP candidate heading into this season, I don't know what you've been watching. And that's not me just having watched the WBC. This is how I feel about Trey Turner. I think he's a really special kid. Oh, and by the way, all I've talked about is his offensive prowess, right? He also plays the most important position on the freaking diamond. He's your shortstop. Yeah. Let's not forget that. And with the new rules where these pitchers can only throw over a couple of times, bases are bigger, all of this shit, I would love for someone to find for me what Vegas has as that over-under line for number of stolen bases for Trey Turner this year. Because if that thing is 40 or less, I'm taking the over all day and twice on Sundays. So for all of you there in Philly, and for any Phillies fans that can hear my voice at some point, this guy's a very special player, okay? He performed incredible in Washington and helped them win a World Series title over the scumbag Astros. Was amazing in his short stint with the Dodgers. In 212 games, he batted .307 with 31 homers, 128 RBIs, and 38 stolen bases. There is no doubt that he is absolutely ready to explode in the city of brotherly love. And without, think about what's going to happen once Bryce Harper comes back. You can put Turner at the top of the order with probably JT batting second, and then Harper's going to bat third. Good luck. Have fun pitching to that. Over to the room one final time before we call it a night. Good Lord, you guys were going back and forth on all this analytic stuff. I love my room. You guys are the best. Jim Rakovic. Great show. Tuned in late, but definitely great stuff. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you popping in. David Connett. It's a way for nerds to try and qualify the eye test. These stats are I can't with the analytic stuff. David Connett again. Overall, Turner isn't a great defender, though. You know, does he really have to be? He's not great, but he's not horrible. Okay, he's average, right? And he's got good range. So his offensive numbers will far outweigh whatever deficiencies you think might be there in the field. I don't see him as a deficient ball player. I just as a deficient defender. I just see him as an average defender with decent range and an incredible guy at the plate and on the base paths. That's how I see him. Lou Mancini taking him to John's roast pork. Yeah, hey man, we're talking whatever. We're less than 4 months away now, bud, for us coming up to Philly. So, for all of you out there, David Connett, Lou Mancini, Jim Rakovic, Keenan Harmon, Russ Taylor. Who else hopped in here? Chucky, my mother, Captain Demps, and everyone else listening sometime tonight or later tomorrow or whenever you decide to tune in. This has been the Unhappy Gilmore Show, powered by Green Legion Radio and part of the Green Legion Radio family. Thank you always for joining in. Guys, girls in the room, I can't thank you enough for being part of this every single week. You guys really, it makes it a lot of fun for me. So, that's all I got for this week, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope we've been entertaining. Lou Mancini, I know you had a tough day at work, bud. I hope we got you through at least a little bit of entertainment here. Got to brighten your evening up over the last hour or so. You guys have fun. Enjoy your week. And I will be back to see you from right here again at my house next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. There will be a week coming up in April, I think it is, where I'm going to move to Friday night, but that's still a few weeks away. Anyways, y'all take care. Have a great week. We love you. Go Birds! All right, everybody. Take care. We'll talk to you soon. Lights out, meatballs.